My name is Ye Chen. I never imagined that after the plane crashed, I would become the only survivor of this air disaster. At least, that's what I thought at first. The scorching sun baked my skin, and the wind blowing off the sea was damp and salty. I stood on the beach in a daze, with only one thought left in my mind. I was actually alive. I had never seen this island before, let alone any people. There wasn't even the slightest trace of human activity. Was I really about to reenact some deserted island survival story here? If that were the case, it would have been better to die in the crash outright. Trapped in a place like this, the chances of getting out were basically zero. But surviving was still something to be thankful for. I forced myself to perk up and walked along the beach, thinking that maybe I wasn't the only one the waves had washed here. Just as I rounded a stretch of reefs, a figure suddenly appeared ahead. I jumped in fright and instinctively ducked behind a rock, my heartbeat instantly shooting up to 180. The person's hair was as messy as a clump of dry grass, tall and skinny, with clothes in tatters. My first reaction was, wild man. There might even be natives on this island. But when that person fully came around the corner, I froze completely. It wasn't any wild man at all, but clearly Lin Yu, Director Lin, who had just been transferred to our company not long ago. At the company, people privately said she was the boss's daughter, with every privilege open to her. A nobody like me, just scraping by with a 9-to-5 job, lived in a completely different world from someone like her. Normally, I wouldn't even get a chance to say a word to her. But then again, this plane crash was ultimately her fault. If she hadn't insisted on going abroad for a meeting, nobody in the company would have had to accompany her on that flight of nearly 20 hours, especially when it was currently typhoon season. Was she crazy? Thinking about it made me simmer with anger. But staring at Lin Yu's figure, I couldn't help letting out a sigh. At least, there was another person on this deserted island with me. Who's there? Lin Yu suddenly looked over, her big eyes full of vigilance, like a startled deer. Her cheeks were flushed, her lips pressed tightly together, and her usual air of superiority had completely turned into wariness. I knew this woman's temper, so I stopped hiding and walked straight out. It's me, Ye Chen. What are you doing skulking around over there? Lin Yu recognized me, and the fear in her eyes instantly turned to contempt, the kind of look that made it seem like I was something filthy. She bent down, picked up a rock, and shouted at me, "Don't come any closer." I stood where I was without moving, but she still hurled the rock in her hand at me. I didn't even have time to dodge. The rock struck my brow perfectly, and blood immediately streamed down my face. I staggered back a few steps and reached up to touch it, my hand coming away red. Seeing me bleed, Lin Yu actually relaxed. I stared at her and let out a cold laugh. What? Did I cause this plane crash? Or did I become your father's killer? Did you really have to be this ruthless? Lin Yu brushed back her hair, and that stunningly beautiful face of hers was full of disgust as she gritted her teeth and said, "Before, the vice president said you were lecherous and low class, that you peeped at female colleagues in the company. I didn't believe him. I thought you were just poor. I never expected you really deserved to be fired. If I hadn't noticed you just now, who knows what disgusting thing you were planning to do." She almost made me laugh from anger. If she hadn't appeared looking like some wild person just now, would I have hidden? Can't you be a little reasonable? If I really wanted to peep on you, would I have needed to walk out on my own? I'd have found a chance to knock you out already. I was so mad I wanted to curse. Lin Yu took a step back in fright at my shout. But behind her was the rock wall, so she had nowhere to retreat. She actually burst into aggrieved tears, not giving me any chance to explain at all, and stubbornly insisting that I was that kind of person. I couldn't be bothered wasting any more words on a woman like this, so I turned and left. While searching around earlier, I had found a cave. It wasn't big, but at least it could shelter me from the wind and rain. Who knew how cold the nights on this lousy island might get? Better find a place to settle down first. The sky gradually darkened, and the temperature dropped fast. The jungle behind the beach was pitch black, and no one knew what might be hiding inside. I was so hungry my stomach was stuck to my back, but luckily I found 2 flints near the cave. With fire, the night would be much easier to get through. I piled up the dry wood I had gathered and lit it, then used stones to make a simple fire ring. There was a strange smell coming from the cave. After checking carefully, I discovered it was an abandoned bear den, and the droppings inside had long since dried out and would scatter with a single blow. Because of that smell, other wild animals would basically stay away. That was good news. Fighting back my disgust, I grabbed a few handfuls of the droppings and scattered them around the cave as markers. The smell really was nauseating, but staying alive was more important than anything. I spread the straw I had found inside, sat by the campfire, and listened to the crackling of the burning wood. Only then did my heart finally settle a little. I took off my soaking wet clothes, leaving only my boxer briefs, and hung them by the fire to dry. Once things quieted down, my mind drifted back to the things Lin Yu had said. The vice president, that greasy balding guy, really had it in for me. But I hadn't expected that, just to stab me in the back, he would make up stories about me like that in front of Lin Yu. In the end, all of this bad blood came from my ex-girlfriend, Liame. Back then, she and I joined the company together, in the same department, but different teams. I worked overtime every day, and my performance was decent enough, but in 3 years not a single promotion opportunity came my way. On the contrary, Liame spent her days scrolling Douyin and slacking off, yet somehow made it all the way to director. When I asked her how she did it, she always told me nonsense like there are many roads to Rome, that sometimes you can rely on tricks when necessary. She even urged me to quit and go somewhere else, saying this job didn't suit me. And back then, I actually believed all of it. Until one time, while I was in a stall in the men's restroom, I clearly heard her outside having an intimate conversation in hushed tones with the vice president. My whole body went rigid, and I made a noise when my foot slipped. The vice president, that lustful man in his 40s with a huge belly, had worked at the company for 20 years and loved nothing more than getting handsy with newcomers. Not long after, I broke up with her. A woman like that wasn't worth keeping anyway. In my last month, I had already written my resignation letter and was planning to leave after collecting my pay. But they were afraid I'd ruin their little scheme and wanted nothing more than for me to disappear immediately. So they stepped up their smearing and exclusion of me in the company. Thinking about all that mess even now still made my blood boil. But that cheating pair were on the plane too, so they'd probably already been fed to the sharks. Serve them right. Just as I was thinking bitterly to myself, it suddenly started raining outside. Luckily, I had moved the campfire into the cave beforehand. Otherwise, it would have been drenched and put out by now. Lin Yu wasn't so lucky. I saw her running toward me in a sorry state. Then her foot slipped, and she fell hard, covered in mud and water, limping as she cursed, "Ye Chen, are you even a man? You saw me fall, and didn't even think to come help me up." Sitting on the straw, I touched the wound at my brow. It had already scabbed over. What I was thinking was, how would I dare touch you? What if you threw another rock at me? My life can't take that. But seeing her like that, I couldn't help softening again. No matter how overbearing Lin Yu was at the company, she was still a woman. Having fallen into this situation, she must have felt more helpless than anyone. I got up and ran over through the rain. "You'd better not get handsy, or I won't let you off," Lin Yu warned me with reddened eyes, looking as if she were terrified I'd take advantage of her. I thought to myself that I really wasn't interested. Seeing her deliberately raise her arm to avoid getting too close, I shifted aside as well and only gave her the lightest support. Who would have thought her foot would slip again? And her whole body toppled backward. In a panic, I grabbed her by the waist, and my hand accidentally touched her leg. My gaze also fell uncontrollably on her chest. Furious, Lin Yu immediately raised her hand and slapped me. "Who said you could touch me? Shameless pervert." The slap was hard and loud, and my cheek burned with pain. She was still screaming and struggling when her footing slipped again, and she was about to fall once more. This time I really didn't want to catch her. Who likes getting slapped? But looking at her terrified face, I knew that if she landed hard on her, but it was definitely going to hurt badly. "Forget it. I won't hold that slap against you." Before she hit the ground, I grabbed both her arms and yanked her back up. Not only was this woman not the slightest bit grateful. Instead, as if she had been touched by something filthy, she violently shook me off, retreated several steps, and looked utterly disgusted. The anger in me flared up again. The ancients were right when they said only women and petty men are hard to deal with. I stormed back to the campfire, not wanting to bother with her anymore. Lin Yu limped in after me. Since I had only spread a small patch of straw by the campfire, and she refused to sit directly on the ground, she had no choice but to sit on the straw next to me. But even so, she still curled herself up in disgust, her face full of reluctance. I thought, what do you mean by that? Sitting next to me isn't going to cost you anything. So is there really any need to make that face? She should really tone down that princess syndrome. But honestly, with such a beautiful woman leaning beside me, and with that pure, untouchable aura of hers, it really did make my mind wander a little. But the moment that thought surfaced, I crushed it. She looks down on me from the bottom of her heart, so why should I keep thinking about her? There are plenty of pretty girls in the world. The atmosphere was so awkward it felt like water could be wrung out of it, and neither of us spoke to the other. But I still couldn't help sneaking a few glances at her. The firelight reflected on her flawless face, and her eyes looked soft and captivating. Under normal circumstances, how would I ever get the chance to sit this close to her? In the end, Lin Yu spoke first. Frowning, She looked at the curtain of rain outside. Ye Chen, do you think only the two of us survived? Maybe. That kind of plane crash. All I remember is the plane shaking violently before I passed out. When I woke up, I was lying on a piece of wreckage and had been washed here by the waves. I sighed. What should we do? Are the others all dead? Lin Yu was, after all, a woman. 2 lines of tears immediately rolled down her face, and the sight of it made my heart ache. I wanted to comfort her, but I couldn't help feeling a little emotional myself. A powerful woman like her, who had always had everything go smoothly and always stood high above others, was now helplessly asking me what to do. It strangely made me feel a bit more balanced inside. Don't worry. With a plane crash this serious, the search and rescue team must have already been dispatched. Maybe they'll find us very soon. That's how I comforted her, though I didn't voice the doubts in my heart. We had the accident on an equatorial route, so logically, even if we crashed into the sea, we should have drifted to islands near the equator. But on my way here just now, I actually found temperate and cold zone plants, even yew trees, and the temperature also seemed to be dropping. Something wasn't right, but my mind was too chaotic to think deeply about it for the moment. After hearing my reassurance, Lin Yu stopped crying and, rubbing her stomach, asked me, Ye Chen, do you have anything to eat? I'm so hungry. The moment she said that, my own hunger was completely stirred up too. But right now there was nothing edible around us at all, and my heart sank little by little. Food was our biggest problem now. Fortunately, I grew up at my grandmother's house when I was little, and I had done plenty of foraging in the hills for something to eat. I told her, don't worry. As soon as the rain stops, I'll go look for food. I won't let you go hungry. But Lin Yu didn't believe me. She gave me a disappointed look and said coldly, stop dreaming. In a hellhole like this, maybe we'll starve to death before rescue even arrives. After saying that, she cupped her hands together to catch rainwater to drink, trying to make do for now. I couldn't be bothered to respond. At a time like this, saving even a little strength mattered. The rain finally stopped when the sky was on the verge of turning dark. I immediately got up and headed out, and Lin Yu panicked. Where are you going? Don't leave me behind. I glanced back at her without stopping. We might be able to find some seafood by the shore, so we had to hurry over before it got dark. Behind me, Lin Yu shouted, wait for me, and limped after me. I found it amusing. Just a moment ago she thought I was filthy and refused to go near me no matter what, but now she was sticking close. We hadn't gone far when I suddenly spotted a black suitcase floating by the shore. Delighted, I immediately ran over and grabbed it. Afraid the waves would carry it away, I simply jumped into the sea and gripped the suitcase strapped tightly, pulling hard toward shore. The icy seawater rose over my head, but the suitcase was heavy, so there had to be something good inside. Just as I was exerting myself, I caught sight of Lin Yu on the shore, and suddenly a mischievous thought popped into my head. I'm a good swimmer, so when a wave came crashing over me, I took a deep breath, dragged the suitcase with me, dove into the water, and sank straight down. When Lin Yu on the shore suddenly saw that I had vanished, she immediately panicked, her voice going shrill. Ye Chen, where are you? Come out now, don't scare me. She was so frightened her legs went weak, and she collapsed onto the beach, her tone filled with despair. I could hear her crystal clear from underwater, and I can't describe how satisfied I felt. Weren't you acting like you hated me to death just now? Now you know you can't do without me, huh? Once my anger faded, I couldn't bear to let her keep crying, so I grabbed the suitcase and swam back to shore. Seeing that I had returned safe and sound, Lin Yu's face showed both embarrassment and anger, and her eyes were still red. I couldn't help laughing. She turned her head away and ignored me, but still couldn't resist sneaking peeks at the suitcase in my hand. And that sulky expression of hers made me laugh even more freely. The company's iceberg goddess. If we hadn't been stranded on a deserted island, how could I ever have seen her like this? When I opened the suitcase, it was full of clothes. They were soaked through, but they could be worn once dried. Besides the clothes, there were actually snacks too. I quickly took them out. Tonight's meal was finally settled, and it would also save us the effort of looking for food. We each split a bag, and I deliberately set part of it aside to store away. Heaven knows when rescue will come, so we had to ration this one-time food supply. This time, Lin Yu was quite obedient and didn't argue. There were also things like needles and thread and ID documents in the suitcase, and I didn't throw any of them away. Who knows whether they might be useful later. By the time we dragged the suitcase back to the cave, it was already completely dark. The campfire was burning brightly, and the cave was nice and warm. We dried our wet clothes by the fire, gazed at the distant starry sky, and listened to the insects chirping in the mountains and forest. The atmosphere actually felt a little cozy, as if we weren't stranded at all, but on vacation instead. Of course, that was just wishful thinking on my part. Ever since I scared her underwater, Linyu had become even more guarded around me, shooting me wary glances from time to time. While drying our clothes, she suddenly said, Ye Chen, I can agree to this. As long as you obediently listen to me, don't try anything, and behave yourself. After we leave this island, I'll give you 200,000. How about it? 200,000. For a rich beauty like her, it was probably about the same as 20. I let out a cold laugh. Cut the nonsense and save your strength. If we'd listened to you and everything, we'd have starved to death by now. This clumsy woman could almost set the cave on fire just trying to dry some clothes. Without me, she wouldn't survive a single minute on this deserted island. And this island gave me a very bad feeling, like a sleeping beast with danger lurking everywhere. Linyu got angry. What do you mean by that? Looking down on me. You just picked up a suitcase. What's there to be so proud of? Maybe I'll pick one up tomorrow too. I spread my hands and said with a smile. Then go ahead and pick one up. So what if she came from a noble background? On this deserted island, background meant nothing. Only gender and strength mattered. I didn't waste any more words on her. Using the dried clothes, I spread a simple bedsheet over the straw and went straight to sleep. Linyu also clumsily tried to copy me, but made a complete mess of it. I really couldn't bear to watch, so I got up and helped her straighten it out. In the end, we lay side by side in the cave, the campfire by our feet and the starry sky above our heads. But she placed that suitcase in the middle like a boundary line, and through gritted teeth she said, You're dead. I replied, I'll be thanking heaven and earth as long as you don't crawl over here in the middle of the night. She was so furious she kept calling me disgusting. I was far too tired and quickly fell asleep, but before long Linyu woke me with repeated shouts. Groggily I sat up and heard her say in a fluster, Ye Chen, get up, hurry. There's a sound coming from the woods. Is there something strange out there? I immediately grew tense and listened carefully for a long while, but found nothing at all. After all that, it was just the sound of wind rustling the leaves. This woman was way too timid, but she was so scared that she kept edging closer to me, both hands clutching my arm. If not for the suitcase between us, she probably would have rolled straight into my arms already. I sneered inwardly. Just now she was still cursing me, and now she was taking the initiative to come closer. But drowsiness overtook me, and I had no mind to think much more about it. I soon fell asleep again, and at daybreak the next morning I woke up. To my surprise, Linyu had actually gotten up even earlier than I had. She had braided her hair into a single plait with a thin twig, and her brows and eyes looked much gentler. She also didn't nag me again like she had yesterday, which made me feel much more at ease. We were both starving. She was just about to rummage through the suitcase for something to eat when I stopped her. Under her puzzled gaze, I took her to the seaside. I found a sharp stone, bent down, and dug hard into the wet, soft mud. Before long, I dug up a big pile of lively, wriggling earthworms. Linyu leaned in for a look and was utterly disgusted. What are you digging these things up for? To find food, of course, I said calmly. Her whole face scrunched up, and she took several steps back. If you want to eat them yourself. I'm not eating that. I didn't explain. I wasn't going to eat the earthworms, but these things are perfect for catching fish. Without a fishing rod or line, I could only use this crude method. I put the earthworms on a rock and smashed them until they were a bloody pulp, and a strong, muddy, fishy smell spread out. Then found a few large leaves to wrap them up and placed the bundle in a tidal pool I had picked out beforehand, weighing it down with a stone. Linyu watched my whole series of actions with a face full of confusion. I smiled and said, Just wait, we'll have food by noon. But she didn't believe it at all and muttered with a look of disdain, All you know how to do is brag. Yame said before that you slack off at work and never do anything. Looks like I should have fired you a long time ago. The moment I heard that, anger surged up in me. More dirty lies from that cheating pair. I couldn't be bothered to explain. I tossed out a just wait and see, then went back to the campfire to rest. Since I still had some strength in the morning, I might as well gather some more firewood. As soon as noon came, I sprinted toward the tidal pool. When I moved the stone away and looked, wow, there were two big flounders trapped inside. They must not have managed to swim away when the tide went out and had been lured over by the fishy smell of the earthworms. I threaded a grass rope through the fish gills and carried the two fat fish back to the cave at an easy pace, grinning from ear to ear. We're eating fish today? Linyu stared blankly at the fish in my hands, swallowing hard from hunger, unable to react for quite a while. When she asked how I did it, I patiently explained the principles of tides and bait. There were also small fish and little crabs in the pool, and I released them all. It was a rule taught in the village since childhood. If you catch small fish or shrimp, you have to let them go. These two big fat fish are enough for us to eat until tomorrow. We were both in extremely good spirits. I set up a simple grill, gutted and cleaned the fish, and put them over the fire to roast. The fish skin gradually turned golden, fat dripped onto the firewood with a sizzling sound, and the aroma spread everywhere. Lin Yu squatted nearby, staring without even blinking. There were no seasonings at all, but the fish was delicious, with tender flesh and crispy skin. One bite filled your mouth with springy, succulent fish. The two of us ate almost all of the two big fish, leaving only a small portion for the evening. Lin Yu sat to one side, looked at me gratefully, and said, "The fish tastes really good. I misunderstood you before, so please don't take it to heart." Hearing that, my anger instantly disappeared. Instead, I looked at Lin Yu and said slowly, "Actually, I'm not that kind of person. I'm not as bad as you think." Back at the company, I was wondering whether I should tell her about Vice President Tang Tian and Li Yamei when I suddenly heard a rustling sound from the bushes behind us, directly interrupting what I was about to say next. That startled me too. Could the smell of the fish have attracted some wild beast? Seeing that Lin Yu still hadn't reacted, I immediately got up and tackled her, preparing to drag her into hiding. Lin Yu was startled by what I did and stared at me with wide eyes, thinking I was about to do something bad to her. She was just about to scream when I covered her mouth. "Shut up, something's coming," I said through gritted teeth in a low voice. As soon as I finished speaking, Lin Yu panicked too and didn't dare move again. Neither of us even dared breathe loudly. But what I didn't expect was that what emerged from the bushes wasn't some ferocious beast at all, but that cheating pair. The two of them looked extremely bedraggled, completely lacking their usual glamour. They were filthy and disheveled, looking like they had suffered quite a lot. If the two of them hadn't spoken, Lin Yu and I would have thought we'd run into wild people. But thinking about it, they must have smelled the aroma of the grilled fish and followed it all the way here. "Yamei, why do you look like this?" Lin Yu looked at them in shock. The two of them walked toward us, and the stench from their bodies hit us instantly, so bad that Lin Yu frowned slightly. Seeing her like that, I sneered inwardly. I didn't expect they'd make her even more uncomfortable than I did. "We're starving to death. Do you have any food? Hurry and give us some." The two of them said this, but their hands never stopped moving. They quickly grabbed the fish we had left over, and without waiting for anyone's permission, started wolfing it down on the spot. "That definitely won't be enough. I'll go get you some more." Before I could even speak, Lin Yu had already handed all the snacks to them. With how eager she looked, anyone who didn't know better would think all this stuff belonged to her. A wave of displeasure rose in me. After all, I was the one who had worked hard to find all this food. What right did Lin Yu have to give it to other people without my permission? It was one thing when she ate it herself, but now she was giving it away to others. I really couldn't stand it, especially this cheating pair. Not only had they betrayed me, they had also talked badly about me and twisted the facts, turning my image in Lin Yu's mind into that of a lecherous lowlife. I had no intention of giving them any food. I reached out directly and snatched the snacks back from Tang Tian's hands, holding them with a cold expression. The two of them had been eating happily, and when their food was suddenly taken away, they couldn't help getting angry. Tang Tian in particular glared at me with eyes wide, but still didn't forget to stuff fish into his mouth as he shouted angrily, "Poor loser, why are you snatching my stuff? Believe it or not, I'll beat you to death." I let out a cold laugh and didn't take him seriously at all. In the state he was in, with his body hollowed out by drinking and women, he was no match for me at all. He looked solid enough, but in reality, he'd be out of breath after barely running a few steps. "Come on," I said without the slightest fear. "You think I wouldn't dare? Just watch me beat you half to death today." Tang Tian roared angrily as he rolled up his sleeves. He lunged at me to hit me, but I'd been tough since I was little, and I fought fiercely and ruthlessly, often the king among the kids. Not many people could beat me. As I stared at his knee, I suddenly lifted my leg and kicked it hard, making him collapse and roll around in pain on the spot, clutching his knee and wailing nonstop. "Come on, weren't you going to cripple me? How come you went down first?" I sneered coldly, while flashes ran through my mind of all the ways Tang Tian had bullied me at the company. Back at the company, I'd never had a chance to vent this anger. But now, I wasn't going to put up with him. I crouched down, grabbed him by the collar, and took the chance to punch him twice. "You piece of shit, if you've got any guts, let me eat my fill first. And then let's have a fair fight. What kind of man wins like this?" Tang Tian roared in fury, able to come up with any excuse at all. "Someone like you? Forget eating your fill. Even if I gave you a stick, you still wouldn't be a match for me." I couldn't be bothered to listen to his excuses and raised my fist, ready to keep beating him. But then Lin Yu and Li Yamei quickly rushed over and pulled me away from both sides. Lin Yu in particular looked at me with extreme disgust and shouted angrily. Ye Chen, are you sick in the head? Why are you hitting people for no reason? It's just giving them a little food. Is this really necessary? Didn't you see how hungry they are? I felt deeply aggrieved. Tang Tian was clearly the one provoking me, and now that he couldn't win the fight, it was somehow still my fault. President Lin, please don't be too angry. Tang Tian really was in the wrong just now and shouldn't have fought with Ye Chen. But Ye Chen, you're a man after all. How can you be so petty, unwilling even to share a little food with us? Liame said this in a sanctimonious tone, but every word in and between her lines was accusing me. How easy for you to say? I fumed inwardly. On this deserted island, food was more precious than gold. Wasn't she basically saying we should give all our food to them? This bitch really knows how to talk. But looking at her like this, I also felt lucky inside that I had broken up with her back then. Otherwise, I'd probably be getting played by her completely by now. She glared at me with a face full of grievance, making me furious. But I held my anger back. If I really beat this bitch up, who knew what this cheating pair would say to Lin Yu? This woman would probably believe every word. I sat on the beach, simmering with anger and saying nothing. That cheating pair devoured the fish like starving ghosts in no time at all, but they still felt hungry. Unable to find the fish I had hidden, Lin Yu didn't come over to ask me. Instead, she looked at the two of them with a big smile. There are still plenty of fish in the sea. We can go catch some. Tang Tian slapped his thigh and eagerly chimed in with what Lin Yu said. Catching fish is what I'm best at. When we traveled to Sanya last year, I won the championship by catching fish with my bare hands. As soon as he said that, Lin Yu actually smiled with great anticipation and said, then we're in for a treat this time. That's nothing. Catching fish isn't even worth mentioning. No Bear Grylls. The one from Man vs. Wild. When he first went into the tropical rainforest, I followed him and went through all kinds of hardship and even picked up a few wilderness survival skills. Bear Grylls. You mean that man who's often on TV, surviving alone in the wild for over half a month? Lin Yu said, covering her mouth in great surprise. She hadn't expected Tang Tian to have that kind of experience. They wouldn't have to worry about the next 3 meals now. They just needed to wait calmly for rescue. And with Tang Tian being so unexpectedly capable, Lin Yu couldn't help but admire him a little. It's just some everyday stuff I know, really simple, not nearly as exaggerated as you think. Tang Tian waved his hand with great modesty. That attitude only made the two women look forward to it even more. Lin Yu looked at Tang Tian with delight and said, with you here, we'll definitely be able to hold out until rescue arrives. Maybe we'll even gain a few pounds. Liame added expectantly. I listened from the side without commenting, but inwardly, I was extremely disdainful. Tang Tian was the one bragging all day long. These little tricks of his can only fool women. If he were really as capable as he claims, then why did he and Liame come running out of the woods in such a sorry state just now? Not to mention the seaside, there's plenty to eat in the woods too. Tang Tian was so flattered by Lin Yu that he was bursting with pride. Seeing that it was about time, Lin Yu straightened her clothes and stood up, saying, let's go. We'll head to the beach first and get dinner ready before anything else. Tang Tian grinned from ear to ear. Time for me to shine. He wanted to show off his abilities in front of his beautiful female boss, and right now he only wished he could muster 12 times his usual heroic bearing, so Lin Yu would see him in a new light. Liame looked at Tang Tian with utter admiration, clapping hard for him with both hands. Their relationship was in its honeymoon phase, so she believed everything he said. As for Lin Yu, her impression of Tang Tian rose to another level. After all, with an employee like me around, lazy, gluttonous, always bragging, and lecherous, someone like Tang Tian, outstanding at work and an elite professional, naturally stood out everywhere. Some people find a little food and get all arrogant, hoarding it for themselves. Today I'm going to show him what real ability looks like and put his mind at ease too. With me here, there's nothing to worry about. Tang Tian deliberately glanced at me, his tone extremely arrogant. After all, I had beaten him up earlier, so he was definitely holding a grudge and looking for a way to get back at me. Humph, Brother Tian is the most amazing, Liame said, shooting me a cold glance as if cheating on me and getting together with Tang Tian back then had been such a wonderfully correct choice. Although I said nothing, I sneered inwardly. Snobbish bastard, sooner or later you'll fall flat on your face. I had long since figured out exactly what Tang Tian was in the company. He gets by entirely on bragging, which might still work in society, but here in this godforsaken place, he really shouldn't expect everything to go smoothly. I had observed the shore earlier too. Catching fish wasn't impossible, but it required skill. Watching them turn and head for the coast, I ignored them and turned to walk into the woods instead. Originally, the woods had seemed like the most dangerous place to me, but after seeing that useless sack of straw Tang Tian come out alive from there, it showed that the level of danger wasn't as serious as I had imagined. Besides, I needed drinking water now. If I went too long without water, I'd get dehydrated. Even if I couldn't find a water source, finding a few fruits would do. After entering the woods, I realized that all the trees inside were ones I had never seen before, strange-looking, dense, and full of weird insects too, enough to make my heart pound. It wasn't that I was afraid of bugs, I was just worried about whether the toxins on them might affect me. Some isolated islands, cut off from the world for too long, often have plants and animals that don't exist elsewhere, or even toxins and germs. But I kept feeling that something was off. On this deserted island, weren't there just too many strange things? Alarm bells rang in my mind, and I carefully walked forward, keeping as much distance from them as possible. Still, my luck was pretty good. After walking this stretch, I didn't run into any danger. After passing through the dense woods, a bamboo grove appeared before me. Seeing that bamboo grove, I breathed a sigh of relief and quickly found a sharp-edged stone, then dug up quite a few tender bamboo shoots to eat. Right after that, I searched around some more, took that stone, and started smashing away at a huge bamboo stalk. Before long, I had smashed several bamboo stalks, and the ends of these stalks had all been split open by the stone. Their openings, all sharp. I held them in my hands. These could serve as weapons for the time being. But what surprised me even more was that after the bamboo split, clear liquid actually flowed out from inside. This was bamboo sap. Back in my hometown, if we found this kind of liquid, we'd usually save it to honor our elders with. Because bamboo sap is not only drinkable, it also has medicinal value and can strengthen the body. Some people even specifically buy this stuff as a beverage, and it's not cheap. Right now I was thirsty as hell, so I quickly tilted my head back and took a sip. The bamboo sap tasted wonderfully fresh and cool, making me feel incredibly comfortable. About 2 hours later, I finally left the bamboo grove, but I was carrying quite a lot of things. Just hanging from my waist were 5 or 6 bamboo tubes, all filled with bamboo sap. If I drank it sparingly, it would last me quite a while. I retraced my steps and headed toward the small mound along the path I had come from, because on my way here, I had noticed that beneath those mounds were small openings, and inside there were little footprints and fur. They looked like rabbits. Now that I had a weapon, naturally, I didn't need to think about how to catch them barehanded. I crouched near the rabbit hole, but then I found a big tree and quietly climbed up to keep watch, planning to wait for a rabbit to come out. My luck was excellent. I hadn't waited long before a gray rabbit emerged from the hole. This rabbit's fur and shape were somewhat different from the ones I usually saw. It looked far too big, but at that moment, I didn't have time to think about it. Holding my breath, I thrust the long bamboo spear in my hand. That strike felt heaven sent, and I instantly pierced the rabbit's leg. But although the crafty thing was injured, it still fled toward the woods as fast as it could. There was no way I was going to let something already in my grasp get away, so I hurried after it. The thing was injured and couldn't outrun me, so I caught up very quickly. It led me crashing around wildly through the woods, and when I finally stopped, I discovered a small stream in front of me. I was delighted deep down. If the bamboo sap ran out, I wouldn't have to worry about not finding a water source. To make sure I could find this place again, I deliberately left special markers on the way back. Seeing that I was almost back at the cave, I deliberately wrapped the rabbit in my clothes before slowly walking back. But when I returned, I found that Lin Yu and the other two had long since come back and were sitting there. And they were empty-handed, their expressions none too good. I deliberately smiled and asked as if I didn't care, "Where are your fish? Still haven't caught any?" Hearing that, their expressions grew even uglier, but they couldn't say anything to refute me. Seeing the smile on my face, Lin Yu clenched her teeth in anger, then finally flushed red and revealed the fish wrapped in a cloth. "Who says we didn't catch any? Isn't this a fish? A fish the size of a thumb, not to mention eating it. Even grilling it would be a pain." Still, Lin Yu had at least caught one small fish, but the other two couldn't help at all and could only sit around waiting to eat. Lin Yu had originally wanted to use my method from yesterday to catch fish, but Tang Tian had said that catching fish didn't need to be that troublesome. "Just watch your bro go down and catch some. They'll definitely be better than that thing." "Tang Tian, weren't you going to show off your skills? Why didn't you bring anything back?" I asked with a cold laugh. Tang Tian's expression turned even uglier, staring at me as if he wanted to strangle me to death, gritting his teeth as he cursed. "Who the hell do you think you are? How dare you question me? If my leg hadn't cramped just now and still wasn't better, I could have caught a dozen big fish with ease. But you came back empty-handed too, and you've still got the nerve to question me? He sat by the campfire with one lackey leg stretched way out, while Li Yame kneaded his leg with a fawning expression. His words made me laugh. His leg cramp really came at a convenient time. And it just so happened to cramp when I got into the water. Who says I came back empty-handed? Open your dog eyes wide and take a good look at what this is. I smiled disdainfully and opened up the cloth I was carrying on my back, instantly revealing the big rabbit. Lin Yu's eyes widened in shock. Such a big rabbit. It could be made into so many delicious dishes. After all, rabbit meat was what she usually liked best, things like hand-shredded rabbit and braised rabbit head. She didn't say anything this time, but the way she looked at me was clearly full of admiration. After all, I caught fish yesterday, and today I caught such a big rabbit too, so I really did have some ability. By contrast, a guy like Tang Tian was unreliable no matter how you looked at it. But for now, Lin Yu still trusted him temporarily. After all, Tang Tian performed well at the company, and Lin Yu also felt that maybe some accident had happened today for things to turn out like this. I smiled and said nothing, feeling incomparably calm inside. A long road tests a horse's strength, and time reveals a person's heart. Sooner or later, Tang Tian will show his true colors. But I do want to see what excuse he'll use tomorrow. Lin Yu will also understand that if we want to survive on this deserted island, the only one she can rely on is me. And as for Li Yame, I will definitely make you kneel and beg me, kowtow to apologize to me, but I will never accept you again. I handled the rabbit meat very quickly, but I only cooked half of it. I had to keep the other half, because without emergency food reserves, if something unexpected happened on this deserted island, it would be dangerous. Although no one ate their fill, because of this unexpected feast, everyone ate until their mouths were greasy, and the previously gloomy atmosphere was completely swept away as they started chatting and laughing again. After Tang Tian had eaten his fill, he had the energy to brag again. Just wait, tomorrow I'll go catch rabbits too. Catching rabbits is one of my specialties. As long as you find some branches and smoke up the entrance of the hole, the rabbits inside will all obediently run out. Hearing his words, I found it rather amusing inside. This SB's idea was really naive. Smoking rabbits out sounded fine, but it simply wasn't workable at all. The saying that a cunning rabbit has 3 burrows didn't come from nowhere. A rabbit hole definitely has more than one opening. To smoke out the rabbit, you have to block the other openings in advance, but those openings are all extremely well hidden. Trying to find them all is practically harder than ascending to the heavens. What's more, not all plants produce pungent smoke when burned, and I'd bet this SB definitely doesn't know any of these issues. As for Lin Yu and Li Yame, those two amateurs, hearing him brag so convincingly, they rekindled their hopes in him and looked at him with great anticipation. With people flattering him, Tang Tian became more and more excited as he talked, and when no one was paying attention, he deliberately glared at me a couple of times, his eyes full of malice. Just wait, I've got plenty of tricks up my sleeve. This SB got beaten up by me before, so he definitely wasn't convinced this time and had been looking for a chance to get back at me. But how could I be afraid of trash like him? I couldn't be bothered to deal with this SB either. After eating, I simply went back into the woods to keep looking for food. I wanted to go back to the clear water over there, because that water was very clear and there were fish in it too. If I could catch a few, that would be pretty good. And although the method I used to catch fish by the sea yesterday was effective, today I discovered something very bad. The seawater was slowly rising, and the pit from yesterday had already been submerged. As for pits like that, I hadn't seen any for the time being. Digging another one by manpower would take both time and effort, and besides, the tide would keep rising. If it got flooded, then this thing really wouldn't be worth it. But when I got close to the stream, I heard a woman's laughter coming from behind the bushes. Could there be another survivor? I was extremely excited and hurried over. Right away, I spotted the woman standing by the stream. A woman in her 20s was smiling, holding a small towel, sitting on a rock and wiping her beautiful face and graceful figure clean. She looked like she had just gotten up, and every move she made gave off an air of laziness. Everything around her and the beauty before me formed a breathtaking scene. I stood there motionless, somewhat dumbstruck. The woman quickly noticed my presence, and joy appeared on her face. She hurriedly rushed toward me, excitedly shouting, "That's great. There's still someone alive. I thought everyone was dead." She tightly grabbed my hand, then suddenly threw her arms around me. Her soft and full embrace was warm. Because she was so close, my breathing became a little hurried too. Seeing me like this, the woman couldn't help feeling a little embarrassed. A blush spread across her face as she said coyly, "Don't get the wrong idea. I was just too happy." If Lin Yu were here, she would definitely turn the tables and even accuse me of molesting her. But at this moment, The woman only stepped back a little, awkwardly brushing back her hair, and continued talking to me. My name isn't Yu. You can call me Xiaoya or Sister Yu. What's your name? My name is Ye Chen. I've been here for almost 2 days. What about you? How did you survive all by yourself? I was a little curious, because judging from how you looked, she seemed to be living quite well. But for a woman, surviving on a deserted island is no easy thing. Tang Tian and Li Yamei were both disheveled as dogs. Because I've been hiding in a cave in the woods, and that cave is very safe. If you don't mind, you can stay with me. And you invited me. Listening to her words, I was somewhat tempted, because the cave by the seaside where I stayed actually wasn't safe. Since the seawater could flood that pit, it might also be able to flood that cave. Especially if the seawater suddenly rose while we were sleeping at night, we could go meet God directly. As in you spoke, she took my hand and led me into the woods. Along the way, we kept chatting nonstop. We exchanged our respective experiences of surviving on the deserted island, and as we chatted, I couldn't help but giving you a thumbs up, almost clicking my tongue in amazement. And you was really capable. No wonder she was living so well, not wasting anything at all. She knew quite a lot about wilderness survival, not much worse than me at all. And once we started talking about these things, we found we had many topics in common. We also gained quite a lot while exchanging ideas. For example, I taught Sister Man how to collect bamboo sap and catch wild rabbits, while she taught me how to identify several kinds of edible wild fruits and wild vegetables. Very soon, I arrived at the cave wherein you lived. It was a cave beneath a small hillside. The space wasn't big, but it could hold 3 or 4 people moving around. And it was very clean inside, looking dry and comfortable, very suitable for people to live in. Xiaoya, I'll take you to see my place too. By the way, I still have several pieces of clothing there that I can give you. The weather is too cold now, and your clothes aren't keeping you warm either. Hearing my words, and you was very happy and quickly followed me outside. We came to the beach, and that cave appeared before us. I was about to introduce Yue to everyone, but the moment I walked in, I was instantly so angry I nearly coughed up blood. I even had the urge to beat Tang Tian, this SB, to death on the spot. I had just caught a rabbit this morning, and thinking that food was scarce, I had deliberately left half of it uneaten. But who knew that half was already gone? By the campfire, that half rabbit had been roasted until it was pitch black, and it was still giving off black smoke at this moment. It was obviously burnt and completely inedible. Yet that bastard Tang Tian was actually sitting by the campfire with a smile on his face, one leg stretched out like a pig, and there was still grease around his mouth that he hadn't wiped clean. That completely burnt rabbit had probably had whatever tiny bit of edible meat there was picked out by her and stuffed into her stomach long ago. Furious, I immediately walked over and kicked him, shouting, "Who did this? Why did it end up like this?" I pointed at the rabbit, but Tang Tian just let out an indifferent cold snort. How would I know? Anyway, it wasn't me who made the rabbit end up like this. The way he looked at me was full of disdain. This guy was still playing dumb. I could clearly see the grease by your mouth. Stealing food would be one thing, but you even roasted most of this rabbit into this state. What kind of trash does something like this? You lazy, good-for-nothing bastard are getting more and more arrogant. I was so furious I could no longer hold back my anger, and I grabbed his collar and hauled him up. What? You want to fight? Then come on. I've disliked you for a long time already. Tang Tian slapped my hand away, hatred flashing in his eyes. He had never accepted being beaten by me before, and now he felt his chance had come. Poor boy, you just caught one rabbit, and you already think you're somebody. Today I'll let you know what it means to be king. Tang Tian said this with extreme arrogance, preparing to beat me up. Ye Chen, back at the company, I've especially wanted to beat you up for a long time, but never had the chance. If I don't teach you a lesson today, I'll write my name backward. Tang Tian said viciously, but I could only let out a cold sneer. A piece of trash like you wants to beat me up? Let's see how I deal with you instead. With old grudges and new piled together, my whole body was filled with strength. It's not convenient to fight here. Let's go over to the other side, and I'll teach you how to behave. Tang Tian looked at the 2 women on the beach and spoke hypocritically. I smiled scornfully and snorted at him. Trash like you dares to teach me how to behave. Are you coming or not? Just say the word. You little bastard, last time you took advantage of the situation, but this time I definitely won't be afraid of you. Tang Tian put on a show of loosening up his joints. On the surface, this guy looked strong and sturdy, while I looked skinny and easy to bully, and perhaps that was where his confidence came from. But in reality, he was all show and no substance. I work out regularly and have plenty of muscle on me. I let out a cold laugh, too lazy to waste words on this SB, and directly kicked at his knee. That kick made him lose his footing at once. He fell to the ground, clutching his knee and screaming miserably. Despicable. You actually played dirty on me. Tang Tian shouted furiously. Against someone like you, do I need to pick a place? Right here. I can still beat you till you piss your pants. Saying that, I jumped over, grabbed his collar, and slammed several hard punches into his face. The feeling of every punch landing solidly calmed my anger quite a bit. Tang Tian was beaten so badly he kept sucking in cold breaths, and his eye sockets had turned purple. But he still kept cursing me, so it seemed this SB still refused to submit. Then today I'd beat him into submission. What I didn't expect, though, was that the commotion on our side was so loud that Lin Yu and Li Yamei had already rushed over. Li Yamei threw herself directly onto Tang Tian and shouted, "Don't hit him, Seven. Don't hit him anymore." Lin Yu glared at me in fury and barked, "I really misjudged you. A loser who can't accomplish anything only knows how to hit people. Stop right now." The two women helped Tang Tian up and asked with great concern, "How are you? Are you okay?" This guy Tang Tian deliberately squeezed out a few tears and said pitifully, "I'm fine. Don't scold Ye Chen. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have burned the rabbit. And if it weren't for that, he wouldn't have gotten so angry." His pitiful act immediately drew the two women's anger. They glared at me furiously. "Ye Chen, are you even human? It was just that half a rabbit, and you treated your companion like this, striking so heavily? Do you think you're invincible just because you can catch some food? Get out of here right now. I don't believe that without you we can't survive. Rescue will be here soon," Lin Yu said furiously. "A petty person intoxicated by sudden success. Now that you've been given a chance to throw your weight around. It's truly disgusting." Li Yamei also fanned the flames from the side. I was speechless. Tang Tian only knew how to twist black and white, play the victim, and hypocritically say things like he didn't blame me. Blame my ass. And these two women were idiots too. Whatever Tang Tian said, they believed. Fine, do whatever you want. I'm done serving you. By this point, all my patience had long run out. And you wanted to help explain for me, but I stopped her. Since you can't stand me, then let's go our separate ways. From now on, you three can live on your own, and then you will be with me. As I spoke, I took An Yu's hand and turned to leave. If you're going to get lost, then hurry up and go. Don't act like anyone cares about you. Li Yamei cursed viciously behind me. Lin Yu turned her head away as if she couldn't be bothered with me. After all, in their eyes, with an expert like Tang Tian around, a petty man like me who only knew how to brag would only be a nuisance if I stayed. Anyway, Tang Tian could make sure they lived well. I couldn't be bothered to argue, since time would prove all this. Tang Tian was just a useless piece of trash and completely worthless. He knew nothing except eating, and those two women would soon get a taste of it. It was also time for them to pay the price and take responsibility for everything they'd done. After Lin Yu saw clearly what kind of person Tang Tian really was, she would definitely apologize to me and come looking for me. But what made me even angrier was that after I had only taken a few steps, the two women actually grabbed An Yu and kindly tried to persuade her. "Little sister, stay and stick with us. This guy is not a good person. We used to be co-workers with him. This guy can't do anything. He's lecherous and sleazy, always trying to take advantage, and he loves bragging. He's definitely not a good person. You'll get no benefit from following him." I was about to die of anger. Lin Yu really was an idiot. If I were really the way you said, why had I treated you so politely before? But thinking about it that way, I felt a little regret too. Since Lin Yu had thought of me that way all along, why should I have bothered acting like a gentleman? No. And Yu refused without even thinking, then looked at Lin Yu with a meaningful smile. Seeing isn't necessarily believing, and hearing is even less likely to be true. If you really observe with your heart, you'll find that many things aren't the way you think they are. Lin Yu seemed a little bewildered by her words. But Li Yamei pulled Lin Yu's hand and whispered off to the side. "I think this woman teamed up with Ye Chen not long after meeting him. And their relationship is obviously improper. A shameless pair." Since not many people knew about my past relationship with Li Yamei, when this woman badmouthed me, Lin Yu didn't suspect anything and listened very seriously, then even spat on the ground. As for what An Yu had told her, she had already thrown it to the back of her mind. After getting rid of the burden that was Tang Tian, I should have felt happy, but at this moment, I felt a little down. Being falsely accused felt extremely awful, and being wrongly blamed at the company was one thing, but I hadn't expected it to be the same even after coming to this place. And you knew I was unhappy. So she reached out and firmly held my hand, comforting me as she said, "Cheer up. We're starting a new life now, and that vile man will get his comeuppance sooner or later. Come on, give me a smile." She pinched my cheek. Her hand was slightly cool, but very soft. Her closeness once again made my breathing grow rapid. But I think one thing they said can still be believed, and that is, you really can be a little pervy. Although when you said that, there was no contempt in her eyes. I felt very awkward hearing that. How can you blame me for that? You're the one who kept taking the initiative to get close to me and deliberately tease me every time. With you around, my mood improved a lot for a while. We happily returned to the woods and came to the little river wherein you had washed herself. Before long, we had caught several big fish. But instead of heading straight back to the cave, we walked toward the shore. How about we grill fish by the sea while we eat the meat and let them smell the aroma? I came up with an idea, and a wicked grin appeared on my face. You're so bad. And you laughed happily with me and nodded in agreement. We came to the shore and set up a campfire, then started grilling the fish. The aroma of the fish spread everywhere and drifted far away. Liame and Lin Yu weren't far from us, and they smelled it too. Both their faces darkened, and they couldn't help swallowing. But Lin Yu quickly adjusted her expression, glared at me with disgust, and turned her head back. On the other hand, that shameless Liame looked at Tang Tian busy by the shore, and regret showed in her eyes. Don't worry, Tang Tian will definitely find something to eat, and it won't be any worse than what that bastard has. Lin Yu comforted her, still holding great hope for Tang Tian in her heart. The two of them just sat by the campfire waiting, watching Tang Tian search for things by the shore, only hoping he could find something to eat. But they waited until their stomachs were growling. Meanwhile, we had long since started eating. These fish were all natural and unpolluted, so the flesh was naturally incredibly fresh and tender. I controlled the heat very well, bringing out the full deliciousness of the fish. Paired with bamboo juice, this fish tasted even better than a lavish meal in the city. And you and I ate while chatting and laughing merrily. Watching us like that, Liame and Lin Yu could only sullenly gather firewood and throw it in stick by stick, feeling extremely irritated. That bastard. He definitely did it on purpose. So what if he caught a few fish? What's so great about that? Showing off over this is truly disgusting. Lin Yu clenched her teeth in anger and snapped several sticks of firewood. Liame, on the other hand, stayed silent. But the way she looked at us was full of jealousy, along with a trace of regret. Just as the sun was about to set, Tang Tian finally came back. But seeing his empty hands, the two women's hearts sank at once, and they couldn't help asking, "Didn't you get anything at all? Don't even mention it. I got beaten up by that guy just now, so my head hurts and my hands and feet aren't nimble. I saw several fish I was about to catch, but they still got away." Tang Tian certainly had plenty of excuses to make for himself. His act of accepting his bad luck left the two women with nothing to say. But I was furious. This guy had actually shoved the blame onto me again. Just because I hit you, now you can't even take care of yourself? Why don't you just go completely paralyzed? Then what are we supposed to do tonight? We don't have anything at all. Lin Yu asked somewhat anxiously. Liame sighed and said slowly, "Didn't we catch some small fish this afternoon? Let's make do with that for now. Things will definitely get better tomorrow." Tang Tian also chimed in, saying, "Yeah, and I did catch some things today." He spread open his palm, revealing shrimp as thick as fingers inside. These shrimp are good stuff. Grilled, they taste especially delicious. It would have been better if he had stayed quiet, but the moment he spoke, Lin Yu was so angry she wanted to slap him. The lobsters in fancy restaurants are as big as an arm. Yours are only finger-sized. Even if you grill them, there's only enough meat for one bite. Don't worry, I just had bad luck today. Tomorrow will definitely be different. Then I'll go take a look around the woods. Seeing their attitudes grow colder and colder, Tang Tian said helplessly. But Liame sighed helplessly, her eyes occasionally glancing over at us, a flash of helplessness in her eyes. Then you'd better be useful tomorrow. I really don't want others laughing at us anymore. This feels awful. By this time, and you and I had already eaten and drunk our fill, and we lay on the beach rubbing our bellies in complete satisfaction. We couldn't even finish the 3 fish we had grilled, and we tossed all the leftovers straight into the fire. I didn't feel bad about it at all. But as the smell of burnt food spread out, Lin Yu and the others grew increasingly irritated. Seeing them like this only put me in a better mood. Tang Tian wasn't far from showing his true colors now. Thinking this, I pulled Yu up and prepared to leave as well. The sun had only just begun to set, and while the evening glow still remained, I wanted to take a walk by the sea. Maybe we'd find other survivors. But as soon as I stood up, and you said a little jealously, "Finally willing to leave?" The moment you came over, you kept staring at Lin Yu. Do you like her or something? Of course not. She's pretty, but she looks down on me, and I'm still holding a grudge over that. I explained it like that, without saying much more, and hurried forward. This stretch of coastline extended all the way to the southwest. During this time, I had never had a chance to explore it, but this time I intended to go farther and familiarize myself with the nearby terrain. Maybe knowing it well could save my life someday. But before long, we made a surprising discovery. On the beach, we actually saw a person lying there. Even from a distance, I had a very bad feeling in my heart. Because the way she was lying on the ground was so strange, completely motionless. Very likely a dead person. And you was also too scared to go over, so I could only steel myself and walk toward it. I came up to the corpse. She was wearing a dark blue uniform, though the clothes were in disarray, as if they had been battered by wind and waves. The body didn't smell bad, and the dead person's face looked much like that of a living person, so the time of death probably hadn't been very long. But this made me feel deeply sorrowful. We were all people stranded on a deserted island. She had died, so would I be next? I gritted my teeth and closed my eyes, throwing away those bad thoughts. Then I began searching the body, wanting to find something to see who the corpse had belonged to. This person's pockets looked quite bulging, as if they held a lot of things, and I found many surprises in them. There was a pair of scissors, a pair of pliers, alcohol, bandages, and so on, basically like a small first aid kit. These things were all incredibly useful to me. But even as I was happy, I had a bad premonition. What kind of person would carry these items around with them? I continued searching the body, and soon I had my answer, because I found an ID. But when I opened it, my expression turned even uglier. This dead person was from the rescue team. In that case, they had been sent from the outside world to rescue us. But we had been waiting here for rescue, wondering why it still hadn't come. Turns out they had already met with disaster. But weren't they all trained professionals? How could something have happened to them? Was it an accident? But if it wasn't an accident, then what was it? I felt fear, a deep sense of powerlessness enveloping me, and even breathing became difficult. None of this was as simple as I had imagined. Maybe this island really is hiding some secret. I didn't dare think too deeply about it, but my expression was extremely grim. I didn't tell you any of this. We continued walking along the coastline, wanting to keep looking, but as time passed bit by bit, we made no other special discoveries. The only happy thing was that we found a battered old boat on the beach. The boat was big, but it could no longer be started. Inside it, I found a fire axe. This thing was extremely useful. It could be used to chop trees and bamboo. After all, I had been smashing and cutting with stones before, which was far too laborious and time-consuming. More importantly, it could also serve as a weapon, so even if we ran into ferocious beasts, we wouldn't be completely defenseless. And after I had beaten Tang Tian badly before, he definitely wasn't convinced. I still had to be on guard against him, or if he took revenge on me one day, I'd be in trouble without a handy weapon. This axe was definitely a great thing to have. But at this moment, both you and I felt that something was wrong. After the sun set, the sky became extremely gloomy, and wild winds rose everywhere. The trees and bushes by the sea were blown askew, rustling as if they were letting out gloomy laughter. This was a sign that a torrential rainstorm was about to arrive. We have to hurry back to the cave. Something's wrong with this weather. Something big is about to happen. And you called out to me in terror. I nodded, my expression extremely grave. What kind of changes would such a rainstorm bring? Just one illness alone would already be a huge problem. But we didn't head straight back to the woods. Instead, we ran toward the beach. In a place like the beach, if a rainstorm wasn't handled properly, it could very likely cost lives. And although we had parted ways with Lin Yu, I still couldn't bear to watch them die, except for Tang Tian. When we got back to the beach, Lin Yu and the others were also staring at the sky in panic, at a loss. And Yu was somewhat helpless and could only invite them to take shelter in the cave. Lin Yu's expression softened quite a bit. She glanced at me and had just been about to say thank you. But Li Yame suddenly pointed at the sea and screamed in utter terror, "This is bad." We turned our heads to look and were instantly so frightened that our faces went pale. At this moment, aside from the storm, even the once calm sea had gone mad, with wave after wave crashing in. Towering waves kept slamming against the shore. Even more terrifying was that under such huge waves, the seawater was also rapidly pushing toward the coast. The tide was rising, and extremely fast at that. They didn't have much time left. And if things continued like this, before long this whole place would be completely submerged by the sea. We had never seen a scene like this before, and everyone was utterly terrified. "Run!" And you shouted. But I hadn't forgotten the supplies inside. After rushing in and grabbing them, I started running together with the others. Besides the waves and the rising tide, it was already raining from the sky. Everything looked incomparably terrifying, and you ran in front leading everyone. I was carrying things, so I wasn't running fast, but I wasn't slow either. But that bastard Tang Tian directly abandoned Lin Yu and Li Yamei and ran by himself beside Yu, looking nothing like what he had claimed about having a headache and cramped legs. I wasn't the only one who saw this. Lin Yu saw it too. But at this moment, she couldn't say anything and could only push herself to keep up. I sneered inwardly. This time, I'd like to see how this beast explains himself. Among the group, my stamina was pretty good. And even after running all this time, I wasn't even out of breath, still having the spare energy to think about what to do next. But what I didn't expect was that a scream suddenly came from behind. Lin Yu had fallen flat to the ground, lying there in an extremely bedraggled position, while the seawater behind her crept closer bit by bit. Her eyes were filled with despair. I couldn't help sighing and quickly turned back to help her up. Lin Yu, no matter how capable you are, without me, you still can't manage. Her foot was swollen red beyond belief, and there was no time to explain, so I could only hoist her onto my back. And before the waves could pounce over, I ran forward carrying her. This time, Lin Yu didn't resist me like before. Instead, blushing, she softly said thank you in my ear. Her voice was as quiet as a mosquito's, and the corners of my mouth lifted slightly. My depressed mood improved a little too, and I couldn't help speeding up to catch up. Even carrying a person on my back, I could run fast too. As I watched the elevation gradually rise, the dense woods around us made it impossible for me to tell where we were. Fortunately, the roaring of the seawater grew fainter, and I finally breathed a sigh of relief. We arrived near the cave. Just as everyone had crawled inside, the rain outside suddenly came pouring down. Sitting inside and looking out, we saw the torrential rain like giant waves being dumped from the sky, battering the trees until they bent and swayed wildly. From the pitch-black clouds came flashes of lightning and peals of thunder from time to time. Lightning and rain crashed down together onto the island, a terrifying sight that left us shaken. A wave of lingering fear rose in our hearts. Now gathered around the bonfire, our bodies were a little warmer, but we all remained silent. I had wanted to say something to ease the tension, but unexpectedly, a crunch-crunch chewing sound came from the cave. I quickly looked over and saw that bastard Tang Tian holding wild fruit and eating with great relish. Those wild fruits in the cave were all painstakingly picked by Yu. He didn't even ask, he just saw them and started eating, as if this were his own home. I was furious, so I walked over and snatched the food from his hand. My actions undoubtedly provoked him. Tang Tian was so angry he nearly jumped up, glaring at me and roaring. You bastard, what are you doing? What am I doing? Who said you could eat this stuff? All you do all day is eat. You can't do a single thing, you're just like a pig. I said angrily. Say that again if you've got the guts. You little bastard really think you're somebody. If this were outside, I'd kill you in minutes. Tang Tian spoke with a gloomy expression all over his face, but I let out a cold laugh and looked at him as I said, this isn't the outside either. What right do you have to steal other people's food? Since we were stranded on this deserted island, other than eating, have you done anything else? If it were before, Lin Yu and Li Yamei probably would have accused me of being picky, but this time they were both silent. Even Li Yamei lowered her head and said nothing. They wanted to hear Tang Tian's explanation, to see what other excuses he could possibly have. What do you know, you piece of trash? I just had bad luck, that's all. If it weren't for. Tang Tian started shirking responsibility again, but I couldn't be bothered to listen to his nonsense and cut him off directly. Enough, stop making excuses. Didn't you say you were dizzy and your legs were cramping, and that it'd take a long time to recover? Then how come just now you ran faster than anyone else? I gave a cold laugh and exposed his true colors on the spot. That's because. Tang Tian looked a little embarrassed, as if he didn't know how to explain himself. Even his tone was somewhat stiff as everyone stared at him. Tang Tian really had no other choice, so he could only come up with another excuse. That was a life or death moment, so my potential was unleashed, okay? Besides, I don't know what happened either. It just got better on its own. You really are good at talking shit. I smiled and didn't say much more. By now, everyone should be able to see clearly who is best at bragging and who likes making excuses the most. Seeing this, Tang Tian immediately retorted angrily. Everything I'm saying is true. If you trust me, once this rain stops, I'll definitely find food. What the hell use is this brat? I'm definitely better than him. Lin Yu didn't say anything, but her expression looked a little ugly. It seemed she really was starting to doubt Tang Tian. Otherwise, with her personality, she definitely would have praised him properly. Since Tang Tian was a capable subordinate she had personally promoted. Li Yamei let out a helpless sigh, patted him on the shoulder, and gave him a way out. Brother Tian, say less. Once the rain stops, find more stuff and prove your ability. I sneered inwardly when I heard that. Once the rain stopped, I really wanted to see how Tang Tian was going to prove his ability and what excuse he would come up with next. This damn bastard was always convinced rescue would arrive soon, so he kept dragging things out day after day. But I knew better than anyone that rescue would not come so quickly. Besides, the rescue team was already dead, and this island was not as simple as we had imagined. The atmosphere became incredibly awkward and stiff. And you took out some wild fruits from the previous days and smiled as she handed them to Lin Yu and the others. Those few had been hungry all day, and now that they finally had something to eat, their moods improved somewhat. After eating a few bites of wild fruit, Lin Yu regained some strength and said somewhat uncomfortably, "I wonder when the rescue team will come. I really want to go home, lie on the sofa, and enjoy the air conditioning." For someone like her, without a pampered life of luxury, she was nothing. But it wasn't just Lin Yu. It was the same for all of us. Still, when she brought up things like ice cream and pastries, she really made us crave them too. Unfortunately, that was useless. How could this island possibly have such things? All we could do was eat the sour, astringent wild fruit and huddle together for warmth in the cave. The arrival of this rain had also made the temperature suddenly drop, and there was nothing covering the cave entrance, so the cold wind kept pouring in little by little. That adulterous pair, Li Yame and Tang Tian, had long since huddled together for warmth, no longer bothering to hide their relationship in front of Lin Yu. Lin Yu stared at them, some old memories surfacing in her mind. And little by little, she also began to feel that something was off. But at a time like this, she had no time to think about that. The temperature was so cold that she could only cling tightly to Lin Yu, the two of them keeping each other warm. As for me, I was curled up alone by the bonfire, shivering non-stop from the cold. Fortunately, when we escaped from the beach earlier, I had deliberately picked up a few pieces of clothing. Putting on a few extra layers now made it not seem quite so cold. But those gusts of cold wind still made my whole body tremble. This is bad. If this keeps up and I catch a cold, I'm finished. I narrowed my eyes, vaguely sensing something was wrong. But to my surprise, when my consciousness was growing hazy, someone suddenly hugged me. "Ye Chen, I only came because I was worried you'd get sick. You'd better be smart, you brat, and don't try to cop a feel." And you said haughtily. Even though she was warning me, her tone sounded extremely gentle, making it hard not to rely on her. Besides Lin Yu, there was also Lin Yu. But Lin Yu stayed close to Lin Yu and didn't come over. Still, she stared at me with a vigilant expression. "If you dare try anything, I'm not done with you." After saying that, she turned around and ignored me. With Lin Yu there, I wasn't as cold anymore, and before long I fell asleep in a drowsy haze. But not long after, I discovered a figure approaching me in the darkness. Startled, I immediately grabbed the fire axe beside me, ready to deliver a fatal blow to the enemy at any moment.